All right, we'd like to get started. We want to welcome everyone that's here today for our city council and our chambers and those in TV land. I've asked Seth Perrins if he'd start us out with an opening prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads as we begin this council meeting, and we give thee thanks for the opportunity to be here. And we are grateful for the community in which we live, the great residents that are here. We ask for thy Spirit to be a part of this meeting today and help us to be judicious in those things about which we speak, that we may be guided and directed. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Argyle to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The audience, please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have our youth council get sworn in, and so we'll have them come up. Do we know who they are? Come on!
Terrible crack.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. First of all, I'm going to have each one of you say your name and what office you're doing.
I'm Stuart Rickroff. I'm the mayor.
I'm Jan Place. I'm the reporter. I'm Hannah Perrins, I'm the commission.
I'm Austin Gordon. I'm Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm Daniela Gloshin, and I'm the treasurer.
And I'm Duncan Rubber, and I'm the historian.
Great. Okay. We're excited. We've got some great youth there, and we're excited for their service here. So we're going to swear them in. So what I'm going to have you do is raise your right hand, and when I'm saying I, then you each say your own name, if you can remember it, and then just follow after what I say here. All right? I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, that's awesome. We have some great youth in this city, and they do a great job, and it's nice to recognize them and get them sworn in, and thank you. Okay, we're going to move to public comments. We've got some to start off with on our public comments. We've got some scouts or that I want to have them each come up, state their name, and they've got a question they want to ask. Is that correct? Okay, let's have you come on up. Just come up here and tell us your name and ask your question.
I'm Oakley Ryan. What is one thing you always have to think about that people don't know you do?
Okay, any other council would like to answer that question?
Say that a little louder.
Pull the microphone down.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
What is one thing you always have to think about that people don't know you do?
Deal with the mayor.
See, I would expect that from her. Anyone else want to answer that?
You know, I think one of the things is the behind the scenes and the many, many people that you don't know or you don't see is one of the things that you get to know when you become a councilman and you'll learn just how many people it takes to run the city, operate the city, and do the great things that Spanish Fork does.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Come on up here. We don't bite. Just pull that down and state your name.
I'm Benjamin Catanzaro, and do you have any plans for what was my question? Improving bike trails?
I'm going to let Mike answer that.
That is a great question. You know, Dave Anderson, our economic development director, he's just to the back right here, but he and I and a few other people in the city met a couple of weeks ago with an organization called Move Utah, which is a division of the Department of Transportation in the state. Their sole purpose is active transportation and talking about bike trails, the current bike trails, and how you can create more bike trails in your city and make sure they're safe so people actually use them and can get from one side of your city to the other and the shopping areas and different things. And so we currently have an active transportation plan that we share with us and Springville and Payson and Salem and our surrounding communities. But right now we're actually expanding that and going to work with Move Utah to make sure they're going to come in and do an assessment and help us paint even more bike lanes around the city. So you guys and everybody else that wants to ride bikes around the city will be that much more safe when you do it. So we look forward to it. So watch for more bike lanes in Spanish Fork because they're coming. So one of the biggest trail expansions we have going on is from the golf course right now. Do you know the Dripping Rock Trail? Have you ever been up to Dripping Rock? So you saw the water dripping out of the rocks, right? Well, if you go up to the end of that, it dead ends right at that kind of dam right there. Well, there's the next phase of that trail that if you walk up there now, you could see the construction going on. And that trail will take you up and cross the river with a couple really cool bridges. One of them is a suspension bridge, and you'll be able to cross one side of the river, then cross back, and then it'll take you up on top. It'll switch back a couple times and get you up on top all the way to the reservoir in Spanish Fork. So by the end of, let's see, we're trying to finish it up hopefully by the end of the year. It's I don't know if the
Spring.
Oh, so in the spring it'll be open, and you can get all the way from the sports park, so all the way down here where you play soccer and baseball. You'll be able to get from there all the way up to the reservoir without crossing a road, going underneath roads or just staying on the trail the whole way. And that'll be about, 7+ miles, almost 8 miles of trail. And when people come to Spanish Fork and look at that, even these people that are trail people, they really say, wow, you guys have an awesome trail. So that'll be a really cool thing. You can play baseball in the morning and swim in the afternoon and do it all on a trail. So that'll be the next phase.
There you go.
Good question.
Great question, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate Scout and your leader and all that. They contacted me earlier, and so we thought this would be the best way for them, so thank you. All right. That's why we have these good council members. You know, once in a while they come through. So it's all good. All right. Anyone else from the public would like to come up and talk to us? Come on. Get up here. Did you want to?
Yes.
I know. Well, come on up. This is your chance.
I'm just supporting.
I know. I ran into him. He told me you wanted to come and talk to us, so I want him to come up here.
I'm not talking. Okay, I have a complaint. If I'm going to be up here, I might as well open my mouth and insert my foot. I live on 8th North, 2nd West and 8th North. There is big truck traffic down my street, and there are lots of little kids, and they don't go slow. And it just terrifies me. And there's one, I really don't want to rat on my neighbor, but there's one that goes by, and every day between 3 o'clock and 5:30, he honks his horn from 1st West clear down to 3rd West. And it's like, seriously, you don't need to honk that long just to get your wife's attention to come pick you up from where he works. So, okay, Pete.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Jay Williams. I walk on 300 West and
Okay.
8th North. And as I get to the corner, there's cars coming around that corner and they don't stop for me. I mean, I could step onto the street and they still go around in front of me. So I think it's a hazard.
Okay.
And I've seen people come from 3rd or 7th North, where the last stop sign is. And by the time they get past me, going down that road, they're going almost 50 miles an hour. So there's got to be something done, because we've got, like he's saying, you got little kids living around that area, and anyone can run out. So
That's good. And that's what we're going to, I'm sure the police chief, we're going to take note of that. And so,
Jay, what time does that happen when you're walking and they
I
go
walk
around?
early in the morning,
About
7, 8 o'clock.
And you're saying the traffic going north after that stop
Yes,
sign?
going
Okay.
under the underpass.
And heading under, okay.
So, yeah, there's got to be something done, because I'm afraid that it could be, somebody could get really hurt there.
great. Thank you. Well,
Okay, thank you.
we've got the police chief here. He's duly noted, and so we'll see what we can do for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've came up here several times. My name is Pete Tomadakis. I live on 784 North. And I've had metal from trucks unload the metal on my sidewalk. The city was nice enough to put barricades in front of my home, and I appreciate it. I had my fence knocked down 3 times. And my wife called the chief of police quite a few years ago. He says that it is no way that you can have a 3-way stop in Spanish Fork. Well, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Down at the Brock Bank, there is a 3-way stop. You go down farther, there's a 3-way stop, okay? All right, now, the city, I appreciate them putting up the 20-mile-an-hour speed zones, which they just did, okay? And I appreciate it. I don't have children that is little. My oldest boy is 53 years old. The rest of my children are in their 40s, okay? I don't know why I'm up here, but I'm concerned about children. I don't want to walk out of my house and see a little child run over. I don't think anybody here does, okay? Now, there's only one stop sign left, okay? When I first bought that house in the 60s, 63 it was, there was a stop sign on 300 West and 800 North. It got knocked down, it never got put up. There was a stop sign over by the animal hospital, and I don't know what happened to it, okay? Now, there's children, grade school children, that go across that street, and also, at 5 p.m., the trucks go up and down that road, okay? They wake up those little children that's sleeping. I don't think that's right. Besides all the neighbors, I have 3 bedrooms on the north side of my house. My neighbor, Bob Spencer, his sister has a bedroom on the north side of the house. And I don't think that those trucks at 5 o'clock in the morning should be allowed to go up and down that road. And let me see what else I did. That's it. I can't even read my own writing. Okay. This is for, I can't pronounce her name, Charlene Peterson. Okay. She has trucks right next door to her. And she tells me, she asked me quite some time ago about them, and I says, I don't know anything about them. She said, would you go up to city offices with me? Because I think everybody except the new council now, they know me pretty well. Okay? This is true.
Yes, we do.
And she's telling me that they wash their trucks, semi-trucks. Why are semi-trucks allowed in the residential area? But They block her driveway on one side, where they wash their trucks, and she says it's a state law that they cannot wash their trucks and let the water go in the gutter. I don't know this. That's what she's telling me. Okay? My wife, like I said, called the chief of police down there when the girls from the daycare center was pulling their wagons down the sidewalk. They were scared to go down that sidewalk. Okay? Joyce Anson, she's got married afterwards. I can't say her name. Okay? Now, Mrs. Winders also expressed her views, and I've expressed my views, and I thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete.
And then not only that, Mr. Laperson, when Mr. Anderson was mayor, you on the city council, we all agreed when the freeway was done, they would stop all the trucks. I talked to Dave Anderson. I forget his title upstairs. Well, we can't catch him. How can I catch him? I went fishing, and I happened to go down that way toward the airport. Here's a whole bunch of trucks getting ready, warming them up. How can I catch them?
Well, we'll look into that for you, Pete, and we'll see, because we talked to PDM and talked to those people about getting their trucks to go the other way now that we've opened that up.
Okay.
And so they did for a long time, and so we want to make sure that they're continuing to do that, or maybe we need another visit down there with them.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was going to say something else. I think I've said enough. Thank you very much.
Pete, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. What tank there? There you go.
Thank you kindly.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Maybe update on the 1600 North Main intersection. That'll help us.
State your name, Frank, and serial number. Yeah, don't leave just yet.
So the city has been working hard on this issue for a while. It's a very difficult issue, but I just want to go over some of the things that the city has done for this issue. One is there is an intersection right here at 1600 North that has really tight turns that are hard for the trucks to negotiate. And so we have spent the last year acquiring all the land that we would need from the 4 different corners so that we can tear the corners out and put in a lot wider radius for the trucks. So that project is going to be bid out in January and be constructed in the spring. So that's one project. Another project, we've worked hard on getting 1400 North to be a throughway. PDM has said that once that goes through, they will route all their trucks through here. And so hopefully once this is done, we can meet with them, like the mayor said, and see if we can encourage them to come and make this route their route, since it's would be a lot easier to turn. And hopefully that will work. But also, we've been working to acquire land so that we can get this to be a throughway. We've acquired most of what we need, but have really struggled to acquire all of it. And that's a very costly project, which affects revenues such as property taxes and things like that are really limited. So that's the second thing the city's been doing. Another thing which is really important is we've been pushing, and maybe if you could zoom out so that we can see the 2700 North crossing here. We've been working with UDOT and the legislature to get this moved up in priority to make this a full I-15 interchange. We believe that when that occurs, then it will be a draw for trucks from this whole area that are going northbound on I-15 to come up to this interchange and go up instead of coming into town, coming to Main Street and then going up. So we think that's a third thing that should help quite a bit. And so hopefully that answers kind of the first and the last question. But the second question, I just need a little bit more clarification on. So could you zoom into 8th?
Mm-hmm.
And so the request, I believe, was for a stop sign here because pedestrians, a three-way stop, and the issue is pedestrians coming from this direction were at hazard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a bus stop there.
There's a kids' bus stop there for the school-age kids, and it just terrifies me because them kids in the high school age and some adults come down that street like they're going to the races. I mean, it's really scary.
So stop signs have to be warranted. If you put in a stop sign that is not...
I'll buy the stop sign.
So,
I will. I'll buy the stop sign if you'll put it in.
So-
Or you'll let me put it in.
So what a warrant means is we have a warrant study which follows FHWA guidelines where they say you have to have one of these warrants saying that a stop sign is needed. So we can conduct that warrant study and see if we can show that a stop sign is warranted there. If stop signs aren't warranted and you put them in, you actually have more liability as a city than if otherwise, because someone runs it and they say, hey, there's no warrant for this. It's not natural to have a stop sign here, and it made the intersection more dangerous. So one thing we can do is do a warrant study here and see, and pedestrians or one of the warrants. So we can go through that. The cost of the stop signs actually is well within our budgets. We can afford that.
Yes, why were the stop signs where they were when I moved there?
So I know back then warrant studies weren't being done, so I can't speak to that. I'm not a traffic engineer, and so believe it or not, it's a pretty complicated discipline being a traffic engineer, but we can get this warrant study done and go. There are some people that believe everyone who drives is a traffic engineer, but I've sat in enough meetings with traffic engineers to realize that I am not one. But we'll get a warrant study done on that and address that issue. Are there any issues that you brought up that I didn't address?
So Jay, you're talking about, you're at that same place, right, Jay? Right here?
Yes, he's at that same.
Okay, perfect.
That's where he takes and walks.
All right.
Is the concern that trucks are coming and they're driving on the sidewalk and turning here? Is that?
Or I think you're talking about that.
Sometimes they hit the sidewalk. It all depends on how bad they need their cup of coffee or they need their Coke. It's pretty scary sometimes.
I think we'll start that study. I think that's the first step we need to do to see about getting a stop sign there for you. Great. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in, Pete. Okay. All right. Any other people who'd like to come talk to us? Public comment. We have an agenda request from a Cheryl Bennett. Is she here? Would she like to come up? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on then to council comments. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. So the seniors, citizens of Spanish Fork, are now back in. Had to take a couple of months off during the summer, and their first membership drive is started. It's very inexpensive to be a member. Of course, you have to be 55 or older, and then it's $20 which entitles you to some really wonderful membership meals, and that that membership meal will be August the 3rd will be their first one after they've come back after their summer break. Also had a Nebo Agency Water Board meeting. The Nebo Agency is a water board that Spanish Fork City is a part of, and we are working to put together a groundwater management. We have put it together a technical committee that's going to meet with some parties as there are some water that wants to be moved to this area. And we'll continue to work with them and put together this agreement that will bring some water to our communities that will allow the cities to use this water, and as it is slated for some future use on down the road, but it's a large amount of water and it allows the cities to have some control of that, and it's a pretty neat thing that we will be able to have and kind of look to the future as we manage the water as our city grows. They showed that in this area we'll have 1.6 million people by 2065. I don't think I'll be here, but that's a lot of people, and we need to be managing our water for the future, and we're doing a good job of that right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Beck.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Parks and Rec for their breakfast yesterday morning. Monday morning, they invited the mayor and council and the city administrative staff and members of Nebo School District and fed us. So that was very nice. You guys work hard, and I just wanted to share my appreciation. And just remind the residents that the farmers market is going 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Saturday morning here in the back parking lot of the city offices. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Scholes.
Mayor, just a couple of things. First, the animal shelter, just so that citizens are aware, they dealt with 348 animals that they either had come through that were either adopted, euthanized, or rescued in some fashion. 348 cats and dogs combined. There are a few more dogs, not quite 2 to 1, but again, as people have their pets, please be aware of fencing and other city codes. They're not there as a nuisance, but they're there rather to help keep you and your family safe, and for most everyone, their pet is a member of the family, so just be aware of that. They do a great job down at the animal shelter, and appreciate their efforts. We also had the Fine Arts Committee. Just a few numbers to report on. They had their adult arts enrollment was about the same as last year. Upwards of 50, 60 adults participating in that. On the flip side, however, the kids arts program had 1,000 kids enrolled this year. Each year that program has grown by 200 kids roughly, and there was no advertisement for it at all this year, and yet it still grew from about 800 to just a hair over 1,000. Community theater has gone well. Fine Arts Committee working to look to improve the arts in the community. Space is always an issue, but they're doing a great job with the resources they have. Just wanted to report on that. And then just a shout out, we know recently Chief Burchett from Draper City was killed in fires out in California. And that was all over the media and news. Certainly gives us pause to think of those that put their lives in harm's way to keep us safe. And so talking with other members of the community earlier this week, reflecting on those issues, just want to make sure that they wanted to make sure that they passed on their thanks, Chief, to the police department, our fire EMS crews. They do a fantastic job, and there are citizens that have approached me and are very grateful for the work that everyone does. And so thank you very much for what everyone does to keep us safe.
Just a side note on that, maybe you can say it on the mic, but we had firefighters and EMTs backfill some stations in the Salt Lake area so they could attend the funeral.
For those at home that didn't know where we had, in fact, it was one fire truck and one ambulance, one EMS crew.
Yeah, fire and ambulance crew.
one fire crew and one EMS crew went and backfilled so that Draper City and others could go and attend the services up at the Maverick Center. So again, very professional in all that they do, and truly appreciate the fine work. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting from, first of all, I mentioned it to the Scouts' question about trails and bike lanes. I've been asked after we met with the Move Utah folks from UDOT a couple of weeks ago that they have a summit coming up in September up in Salt Lake, and was honored to be asked to sit on a panel for that to discuss some of the really good things that Spanish Fork is doing about trails and bike lanes, and trying to plan for active transportation and make it safe. So you should know and be proud that you're from Spanish Fork, because they've asked us to come show some other cities how that planning is supposed to happen. So it'll be a really neat thing in September to do that and try to answer questions. I hope they're not as hard as your question, because I won't be able to do it, but good question. The League of Cities and Towns had a board meeting yesterday up in Salt Lake that we discussed a lot of the legislative policies and initiatives that are coming down the pike for this upcoming sessions. Some really easy ones, Mayor. You know, they're all easy.
Easy.
Touchy issues. Every single one of them, it seems like. Water. Chad discussed water as it pertains to growth. There's a lot of proposals being bounced about of what kind of lawmaking will happen around water for our communities. The Our Schools Now initiative is discussed. You've heard that in the news about the 10 cents gas tax to help reconcile transportation funding, which would help reconcile education funding for the state. The marijuana initiative was discussed, and I know you're probably wondering why a local council person or any of us would be worried about the marijuana initiative. And what it goes back to more than anything is when you talk about medical marijuana, what that looks like in your community is really down to land use authority and what you, the citizens, decide your community looks like, not just a state mandate of what could happen all over your communities. You imagine where possibly not being able to say, okay, this is where this sort of business is allowed, or this is where this crop is allowed to even be grown. You can imagine how that could quickly change the face of your community. And we're trying to learn, I know the state's trying to learn from other states that have passed similar laws and really cautioned us at the state level to tread lightly. But where your local elected officials are trying to manage it from is let us, that are the local elected officials closest to you, the people, have a say in this process and really express your concerns at that level. So we talked about that. We talked about population growth, and really that one speaks to what some people have in their mind about growth and about how your community grows. And there's real intent on some level of the state to maybe take the land use authority away from local elected officials, which could mean a lot for your community. Again, if you think about what your community could look like, and we say, well, this makes sense to have commercial growth here and residential growth here, and these types of housing here, and maybe condos or apartments over in this place, you could quickly see if that's state mandated that representation of you, the citizens, could quickly be far removed from you. And so we're meeting with legislators, meeting with cities all across the state, 247 cities and members of the League of Cities and Towns, to get everybody's input on how to tackle these problems that are coming up. Other than that, we have an airport board meeting later this week that we'll have, and I'm excited to see Chris on the agenda to talk about airplanes, trains, and automobiles. That I'll stop taking up his time, because I know we'll get to him next after you. So thanks, Mayor. That's all I have.
Great. Appreciate it. Councilman Gordon. Oh, Councilman Gordon isn't here. Forgot to excuse him, to let him know that he's to a convention with the solid waste, and so we want to excuse him tonight. I just wanted to talk about today was probably a big event. Today probably was, for most of the kids in our town, was the first day of school. And so if you got a shot,
You're saying happy birthday? Yeah, must. Happy first day.
So I had the opportunity to go up for the first day of school at Park Elementary today. There's Principal Hughes. They had the fire trucks come up. They had a police officer come up. And look, they got the red carpet. They didn't do this from when I was in school. Already, now the police car came halfway through school when I came, but not at the start. So we had Pete there videotaping it for SF-17, so made it a big deal for these kids. And I want to appreciate the people that firefighters, the public safety people, our police officer came, made this a special occasion for these kids. The reason I bring that up is because with this, we got a lot of kids out on the streets. And so I want everybody to be aware of these kids going to school and making sure that we keep our kids safe. We don't want anybody having any accidents or getting run over or anything like that. So my plea out there is to everyone is to drive aware, be aware of all the kids. When you come to an intersection, slow down, look, and even though there's not a cross guard there, make sure that we look both ways and let's keep our kids safe. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. Pete, nice job on that. Appreciate that. Okay, we've got moving into 101, aeroplanes, trains, automobile event. Gee, Chris, I believe that's you.
That's me. And I'm really excited. I'm Chris Child. I'm the airport manager, and I'm really excited to invite everyone down to our annual Airplanes, Trains, and Automobiles event. This year we got some really neat things lined up. We're going to be starting out with an air race. We've got racers coming from all over the country, actually, to participate in this. 25 air racers signed up so far. We're going to have parachute jumpers. We've got a candy drop lined up with Gail Halverson, the original Berlin candy bomber, is going to be dropping parachutes to the kids. This is a plane that's actually become world famous just in the last few weeks. That was built by our own Mike Patey. That is it used to be a 250 horsepower airplane. Now it's 650 with a turbine engine on it. And so we'll be able to watch. People would come a long ways to watch this thing fly. We're going to have a demonstration by radio control model airplane team, and we've got the Porsche Club is going to put on an air race, or not an air race, but a car race. That's kind of an obstacle course, and they'll be timing themselves going through that down there. So really a lot of fun things I think going to happen down there. We'll have food trucks. We're going to have all the flight schools around down there. So if anybody wants to sign up for flying lessons, they'll have all of them in one place. They can get a good competitive bid. But anyway, we're really excited about it. It's always a fun time. The weather forecast is excellent. It'll be a little warm, so bring your hat and your sunscreen, but should have a great day down there, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody down there.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Great event. Also, now we've got 101B. I've got Scott want to come and talk to us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents. I'm Scott Aylett. I'm the Public Information Officer for Spanish Fork City, and wanted to tell you a little bit about tonight, or something that you'll see on your ballot this November when you receive your ballot in the mail. You may know that a few months ago the City Council proposed and approved putting on the ballot what will be known as Proposition 7. Now, Proposition 7 is for a RAP tax, which stands for Recreation, Arts, and Parks. Now, these RAP taxes are pretty unique because it's a sales tax that's added to the already existing sales tax rate for the city. However, all of the funds that are generated by a RAP tax are set aside and can only be used for recreation, arts, and parks programs, projects, amenities, infrastructure, things of that nature. And so leading up to the election this November, the city will be doing numerous things to help inform the public of this proposition that's on the ballot. Next Monday at 2:30, we will be having a Facebook Live video that residents can tune in and watch, and we'll answer some questions about the RAP tax. We're also filming some video shorts that we'll post on the website, as well as on Facebook and on SF17, that explain some components of the RAP tax. We also have a website that's live now. It's SpanishFork.org/RAPTax, and that's RAP, P as in Paul. And so you can come here, we have it pulled up here, and it explains, kind of the basics of the RAP tax, what it means, what it costs, and what kind of projects can be funded through this RAP tax. So thanks for your time this evening, Mayor and Council and residents, and just wanted to prepare you for that and give you some information as you prepare for election season. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay. Consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. New business. PEC contract modification.
Every 5 to 7 years, we go to RFP to select a engineering firm to do all of the testing in Spanish Fork City. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and we've learned that if we pay for the testing, then they are beholden to us, and they can't be influenced by a contractor who might want a test to pass when it really shouldn't pass. And it's worked really well. It's actually ended up saving developers and contractors quite a bit of money in that we get a lot better pricing for the testing, because we do so much in town. There's always one available and ready, provided they got all the tests that they should get. This contract also provides public works inspections when our two inspectors have too much work to do. So right now we have 30-some developments going on. It's a lot for them, so we can bring this company on board to inspect when our inspectors have a full plate. So and then when the economy goes down, then we don't have to lay off any employees. So this contract was let out about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, and the pricing came in that PEC should be the engineer, but prices have gone up quite a bit in the last 2 years for both construction and construction management, and they can't even hire inspectors with any experience for what we are paying, and we are demanding inspectors with experience. And so they've asked that we do a market addition to the rates, which would still be lower than what the second engineering firm was back then. It is quite the process to not only do the RFP and select an engineer like this, but change over all of the surveying and billing and mapping and a program called Utilisync over to the new engineering firm. And so we feel like it would be better to do a market adjustment to the contract rather than going out to bid again, if you will. It's typically a 5 to 7 year contract.
Any questions, comments? If there isn't, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the PEC contract modification.
Second. Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Canyon Breeze Manor preliminary plat.
I'll just let you guys kind of maybe help me move along there. This is the second time the council has seen a proposed preliminary plat for this property. It was about 2 years ago that a proposed townhome development actually was approved on this site. At that time, the zoning was changed to R3. In short, plans for the property have changed. We're working now, in one sense, I think, with a different applicant, at least a different applicant than the one we started with on the previous townhome project. Let me just lead with this. We're recommending that the project be approved, really in its current form, subject to the applicant simply making a few modifications that I'm going to call minor changes to the overall design. That's consistent with the Development Review Committee and Planning Commission's recommendations. They recommended that the project be approved as well, subject to some conditions. The subject property is just under 6 acres in size. It's located just east of the Somerset Village project, right here. Subject property is a little bit unique in that UDOT purchased some land that used to be part of the subject site just on the east of it. And because of that, and plans that UDOT has to construct a road along what is now the eastern boundary of the subject property, they only have one point of access to the site. And that's really nothing that can be changed. And because of that, they're limited to a 35-unit limit that we have as part of our city ordinance for projects that just have one point of access. Thanks. This image, I think, also helps us get kind of a feel for what's being proposed. These little rectangles here, those are building pads, and the proposal is to put single-family detached homes on those pads. So in that way, it's certainly different from what we had seen before with the townhome design. And in all candor, I really think it's an improvement over townhomes at this location. Again, currently zoned R3, a little bit denser zone that we have in Somerset Village and some of the surrounding properties. But that zoning is in place. These are the things that we've spent quite a bit of time as staff talking about with the applicant, and I think they've largely been addressed at this point. Again, just a little different perspective on the proposed plat itself, and just maybe a little bit more explanation. The purchasers of homes in the development would purchase their home and the land that's immediately underneath the home, and everything else on the property would be held in common by a homeowners association, maintained commonly. And in all candor, I think that's a strength for a project where you have really, you could almost say, lots of this size. Typically with that kind of ability to uniformly maintain a development and a site, things are done pretty well. And again, I think that's a strength of the current proposal. I'll just touch on a couple of other things that we've talked about, and try to be really short. The applicant understands a requirement to construct a masonry wall along the US Highway 6 frontage, similar to what's been done along that corridor further to the west. We've talked to the applicant about constructing a fence along Canyon Road and even into the project a little ways that would be similar to what's been constructed on Volunteer Drive next to the townhome project on Volunteer, some type of a wrought iron style fence. Pretty simple, just something that would help make the area a little bit more safe, maybe for kids, to try to keep them out of the Canyon Road right of way. Over on the east end of the project, where obviously UDOT has yet to construct a new connection from Canyon Road to US 6 here, but we understand that they have plans to do that. No immediate plans, but that's something that will happen. It's our recommendation that the applicant, you could say, either be allowed to or be required to simply construct a vinyl fence adjacent to that right-of-way there, with the understanding that in all likelihood when this road is constructed, that fence would be replaced with a masonry wall, probably as part of the UDOT project. We think that's a suitable way to mark that boundary for the time being. Landscape plan, you've had that in your staff report, so I'll just kind of gloss over that. One of the issues that we've talked at length with the applicant about are the elevations, that's the sides of buildings that you can most prominently see from public streets. And in their project, there aren't a lot of those. You can see with what's really a pretty tight setback between the units, and most of those sides are pretty well hidden. But there are a few places where those elevations are pretty prominent. And one of the conditions that we've talked with the applicant about would require them to make some upgrades to certain elevations in the project, or how many ever others they want to do as well. But our concern as staff and the Planning Commission as well really was that where those elevations are very visible, they need to be dressed up. It needs to be something other than a blank wall. I'm going to touch on a few images that some folks in my office put together today. You're not really trying to single out this project because, frankly, it's an issue that we're talking with several different applicants about right now. Incidentally, these are elevations that the applicant has provided to show how on some of these sides they would do some pop-outs, which would have some variation then in the roof line, different things like that to make it different from some elevations that I'll show in just a minute. So different materials on the side elevation, different things like that. Let me just say this now. I think this is a great step in a good direction, what the applicant's provided here. I think these images are a little bit different than what you have in your staff report, showing the pop-outs and some different materials and things like that. In my view, if on 5 or 6 different elevations in the project, so not talking about very extensively, but at a minimum, maybe, again, on elevations like these here, perhaps some of these others, I think we could probably count out 7 altogether, that the applicant do what they're proposing with the pop-outs and a change of materials, and also simply carry the wainscot around on the bottom. I think that's great. I think we call that good. And incidentally, I think there are some changes that we probably need to make relative to our standards to among other things, level the playing field and to be a little bit more predictable relative to what the city would require for elevations, particularly on corner lots that are facing on the side of a home, an adjacent public street, different materials, pop-outs, some of the very things that the applicant's proposing. This one's a little bit more contemporary in its design, but different materials and that kind of a thing. This is just in Springville, where they have some requirements that buildings have 4-sided architecture. So in this case, the brick on the front of the home does wrap all the way around, not only the side of the home and the garage, but also the garage in the back, with windows on the side, some different things like that. I think this also illustrates how helpful landscaping can be, just simply to make that side elevation look better. Again, in Springville, wainscot, windows, different roof lines, landscaping. In my view, fairly simple things. And then, this is really what we're trying to make sure that we don't see more of in Spanish Fork, that and that. And I think the applicant, like I said, I believe they're there, particularly with the requirement simply that wainscot carry around on the bottom of the homes. I believe the applicant has already met several of these conditions. But just to make sure we're covering our bases, I'd recommend tonight that the council approve the proposed preliminary plat for Canyon Breeze. It's a master planned development. That's why we're here for your approval on this project. Otherwise, with a preliminary plat, it would have stopped with the Planning Commission, and that your recommendation be based on the findings that we have there and subject to those conditions.
One question, are all the homes going to be built exactly the same?
Well, no. In fact, they have provided us a total of 6 different elevations.
And colors?
And maybe I'll let the applicant speak more to what they have in mind with the colors.
Because you notice we got one subdivision down west of here that's
same color.
It's a great example, right? Of
yeah, great example of what we don't want.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would be my only comment, that there are variation, that we don't get every home exactly the same color all the way through.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, even though in some cases maybe the changes are subtle, they do have, it's a total of 6, right, Mike? Different plans that would at least be offered in the project, so to have some opportunity for some variety.
Just and I'm not access here, because not that I want more homes, but where this will just be a short road that the DOT is going to build between Highway 6 and Canyon Road. Is this a possibility of an access onto that road that allows a little more access to there? I mean, that's probably in the future, probably something we don't. Okay.
And that's something that UDOT would control, even if we, for example, wanted that connection there
They would still
for a
have
variety
their-
of reasons.
their
Just the proximity of a driveway or a street there to what's going to be a traffic controlled, signalized intersection. That has been discussed, in fact, I believe, with UDOT and other things, and it has not been warmly received.
Okay, thank you.
Bill. All right. Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the Canyon Breeze Manor preliminary plat. I should have put my glasses on.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck.
I'll second it with the conditions laid out by Dave.
And a second by Councilmember Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moves on. Parkway Professional Plaza Contract Addendum. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mayor. So, the city owns approximately 7 acres of property up on Highway 51 and Spanish Fork Parkway. We contracted several months ago to sell that to Prestige Properties to build a project known as Parkway Professional Plaza. The project will consist of some professional office buildings and also some high-density housing. That's to be taken down in phases. The owner of Prestige Properties is Chris Child, who is here with us tonight. Chris is proposing that we increase the size of the first takedown by almost double. The reason for that is so that he can get streets to line up and make the project work more efficiently at the beginning. So that actually probably is to our benefit. It will almost double the payment he'll make to us as the first parcel is purchased. For the remaining parcels, he has 2 requests. One is that he be able to rent the property for agricultural purposes and at an agricultural rate at $50 an acre a year. I view that as a good idea, so it's taken care of, it's kept weed-free, and I think that's really why he probably wants it. The second is that he be allowed to put a sign up that says, coming soon, Professional Parkway Plaza. I've written the addendum to the agreement that allows that subject to our sign ordinance, so he's compliant with that. A pretty simple addendum, something that we'll put on the regular business so you could discuss it if need be.
Great. Any questions, comments on that? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Parkway Professional Plaza Contract Amendment.
Got a motion by Councilman Nargal.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Airport Transfer Agreement.
So let's talk about that and the next to the grant assumption agreement and the airport lease assumption agreement. We have been working for over a year now very closely with Springville to basically buy them out of the airport. It's been jointly owned and operated for a lot of years. That has created some difficulties in the sense that one or the other of us want to do something the other hasn't wanted to, we haven't had the budget for, and so some things that probably should have been done have not been done. And so the solution to that is to work through and remove them from their active participation in the airport. And the administrative side of that's been in place for a while, but this wraps it all up. And so the transfer agreement indicates that they'll be transferring all of their interest in any title to us. The land, the equipment, there's a few vehicles there. All of that comes to us. Along with that, we have to assume 2 other agreements. That's the other 2 items on the agenda we need to pass tonight. And I should mention this is also on Springville's agenda tonight. So the first one, most of the improvements at the airport were built with federal aviation grants. And if we ever cease to use the airport as an airport, we have to repay those. And they paid 95%, the state paid 5%. We in Springville paid the other 2.5%. So the agreement goes into a fair amount of detail as to what happens if that should ever happen. And the resolution we've come out to is there will be a reverter clause in there, and if it fails to seize, that the land will revert to co-ownership with they and us as far as the land that they own with us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But with that, we've got to find a way to pay back some possible grants. And they probably have more interest in having money than having property in Spanish Fork. And so there's some provisions in there that talk about how that property can be sold. To go through a process, we can request be sold. We can get appraisers if we don't agree on a price, and we go through the process. And then the first proceeds will go to pay off the grant money to the degree that those new and future grants are tied to the property that they have an interest in. And then after that, the proceeds will be split. So we think it's a fair agreement and probably good for the airport. But going back to the FAA grant monies, we are required to assume the responsibility for all of those. And there are, I think the last one that was outstanding as far as any money owing has been paid, but we would be responsible for the payback should the airport cease to be used as an airport. The second thing we have to assume is we have to assume responsibility for all the leases. We've got, I don't know, Chris, 85, 100 hangars down there, something like that. And so we have to assume the responsibility to manage those, to maintain those, and be responsible for those. And so not only do we have a transfer agreement which will transfer Springville's interest to us, we also are assuming the FAA grant agreements and the hangar lease agreements. Now, the other thing I should mention, all of this has to be approved by the FAA. Now, they have seen drafts. They're fine with it. But we're co-owners. I expect that to be a fairly short process. However, it could take up to 6 months. So though we approve this tonight, and Springville hopefully will approve it tonight, we won't actually record the deed until the FAA signs off on it. But we will sign all the contracts, both us and Springville. We'll send them to the FAA for their review, and we'll wait on that. So from an aviation standpoint, I think this is a mile marker day for our airport, and we look forward to it. But we do need to approve these 3 agreements. So we get into it, we need 3 motions. One to approve the transfer agreement, one to approve the grant assumption agreement, and one to approve the lease assumption agreement. So I've gone through that fairly rapidly. Questions?
Or not, can we do them all 3 at the same time, or do we have to do separate?
We can do them at the same time. We ought to mention that we're
Each one of them separate, but we can do it all
we
with
can do
one.
them all at one motion, yes.
Banner Day for Spanish Fork.
Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. If you'll pull the map up, Travis Warren, one of our engineers, did a little bit of research for us today. What's there in the green, the aqua color, is property that is already titled to us. What's in the purple is property that we've jointly purchased through the years. So the deed will just cover the purple. We're still doing a little bit of research, and we've got to fine-tune the actual legal description, because this is a conglomeration of about 15 or 20 different parcels that have been acquired over several decades. We think Springville may have participated in some of what the aqua color is, and we're still researching that. But to the extent that they're not, the reverter we talked about won't pertain to the property in aqua, which is the old core of the initial airport. So that is something I want to point out to you as well as we move down this road.
But the sign might not change for 6 months, is that what you're saying?
I think if they sign it and we sign it, we can change the sign.
Yes.
But we can't record the deed till the FAA approves it.
That's all right, we'll change the sign.
Can I be there can I be there to help take the old one down?
Yes.
All right, as you heard there, we can make these all 3 in one motion, so just whoever makes a motion, make sure you do D, E, and F. So
I make a motion to approve the airport transfer agreement, the airport grant assumption agreement, and the airport lease assumption agreement.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scove. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hallelujah. Thank you.
I move we go into closed session for reasonably imminent litigation and land transaction.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, second by
Second.
Councilman Argal, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the public coming, and thank you.
Thanks, Chris.